Hello, and welcome once again to Escaping Dystopia. My name is Wah. I'll be your host for today. Today we're going to talk about NFTs, securities, and gaming, and hopefully help calm what is becoming a somewhat ridiculous storm around this entire concept. The ability for me to make this short, sweet, and snappy just is not going to be there. Okay, so first off, the first thing that we need to do is make sure we're all talking about the same thing. NFTs. Let's move real quick beyond this notion of JPEGs. Let me show you why we should do that. Okay? This is the EIP 721 non-fungible token standard for the Ethereum network. This is up at the top here. It's the Ethereum improvement protocols. This is, again, on the internet. This is a real thing. This is how these standards are created. The first line, simple summary. A standard interface for non-fungible tokens, also known as deeds. We don't really need to go much further because this tells you most of what you need to know. All this is a standard for basically saying who owns what. What is a wide open thing. If we go back to the standard real quick, we can see that even in the standard it's a little bit more wide open than what you've probably heard of. Let's take a look. We consider use cases of NFTs being owned and transacted by individuals as well as consignment to third-party brokers, wallets, auctioneers. NFTs can represent ownership over digital or physical assets. We consider a diverse universe of assets, and we know you will dream up many more: physical property, virtual collectibles, unique pictures of kittens, collectible cards, negative assets, loans, burdens. Alright, so let's stop there. The use cases, however, for this concept are wide open. What everybody has seen so far with the whole JPEG thing is the simple use case, the very first concept of this implementation. So it's similar to thinking about some of these by judging them by their first implementation. Like, again, looking at the internet through the eyes of AOL being the whole internet. A lot of people even see NFTs or judge them based solely on the functioning of the Ethereum blockchain. And they're like, oh, these are completely useless. They're so expensive. They suck down so much electricity for each transaction. Some of these are very good objections. Again, if you've seen my videos or you watched them for a while, you'll know that even though I do DeFi every day, I don't use Ethereum. It's unusable for DeFi and has been for months. NFTs represent a use case that's also, again, on this monolithic Ethereum network that is kind of making it unusable for the rest of DeFi. The series that I'm doing right now, I'm going to kind of explain how and why that is. We're not going to get too far into it today. But I will say that the objections that most people have about NFTs, the energy use, the cost per transaction, the insider issues, a lot of these have to do with implementations being done on Ethereum. And this is why many projects are now looking at different use cases outside of that network, which are the examples I'm going to show you today. Hopefully that addresses some of your misconceptions. If not, please feel free to put it in the comments. I'm not going to go into it all now, but these objections that people have about this concept are very, to me, just generally uninformed. And once you learn a little bit about more what's going on, you start to see the wildly cool use cases for NFTs in gaming and other places. We're going to focus on the gaming side of it today. Let me do a little grandpa mode here. And so we're going to sit back, relax. I'm going to tell you a little story. This video might get a little long because I want to explain some of this stuff before we get to me showing you how this stuff is currently being implemented and used, and how close we are to the vision I'm about to describe to you from a gaming standpoint. So, me and computer gaming history. I'm going to go into this a little bit because I want to establish kind of the fact that I am not some lightweight gamer. I'm not someone who's coming out of this out of some weird other desire. My feelings about how the gaming industry has gone over the last decade are, it's so dark and sad to see what's happened with loot boxes and battle passes and how the business model of some of the gaming companies have gone to. So over the last few years, while I do think it's something of a golden age in gaming, because a lot of folks like myself who have been gaming since they were children, and one of their, greatest childhood memories was getting an NES, right, for Christmas. And now my kids, I have 4 children under the age of 10, so right now we can do Among Us with, me and 3 of them already, right? And we can all play together on our various devices. So you're talking to someone who's very, very into gaming, into the concept of it. One of the kind of styles or history, or, a lot of game genres over the generations now have evolved in certain ways, but a lot of them are very simple or very conceptually the same. You have certain resources. The strategy of the game is how you use and apply those resources, and then as you continually build up, your empire, be it, whatever, right? Actual empire stuff, little cute little monsters, your farm that's literally like a farm, your character that you're leveling up, right, to get more experience, better equipment, better loot. It's literally called loot. This kind of gaming model has existed for a long time. The entire time that it's been there, these things that you've owned or bought or dealt with in-game have always been, represented in a computer database. And that's one of the aspects of a lot of gaming stuff that people don't quite generally understand. That was kind of the old, and this I'm going to talk about Web 1, 2, and 3 in this context, right? Because in the Web 1, everything is stored locally, right? You're playing this role-playing game. It's a single-player game. Your character's all stored locally. All your items, equipment, everything is all there in a file that people would then later on encrypt, and you'd get the hacks and whatnot, right? So that's Web 1, right? You're logging in with a username and password that's local to that website. Web 2, right, where we are kind of now, is you're logging into Blizzard's service or Unreal service or Epic service or Microsoft service, Sony's service, right? And they're this centralized entity that is then connecting you. Now, often here now, your items and all this are stored on a database that's not local to your machine, that's not local to your network, that's not local to you in any way, but it's stored on the company's server, right? So now it's there, out there. Web 3 changes that paradigm once again, and now instead of the back-end database being inside these singular organizations, it becomes this distributed database that really just lives out there in the clouds of the internet. And that concept, that move, is really kind of all we're talking about, but because it has the cryptocurrency aspect of it, and because it's related to value itself moving to this same place at the same time, a lot of people are really confused and scared, and it's very weird. And this is why I kind of wanted to talk about, and that's why in the title of this, it's NFTs, Securities, and Gaming. And now let me kind of explain that a little bit to you right now, right? So this is the web interface for polychain monsters, right? You discover them, they're cute little, it's obviously similar to some other thing that you've probably heard of, right? And it's a good example of, well, if they had been doing this from the beginning, you may still have your original, whatever those things, char lizard, and I'm making up silly names so I don't get sued. I'm just kidding. But anyway, so this is an NFT style game where they're trying to do this similar kind of things. and you enter into the app, and here I'm actually already connected. So this also talks about how kind of web wallets work. So if you were to look at this page, this open booster page, the way you are, you would see this interface, and it would say how do you want to connect, and then you could pick a chain that you connect with, and then you click on the app, and if you watch real quick, you'll see that I connect. It opens up this thing. I have already given this permission to connect, so normally it would pop up a little thing that says, would you like to connect via my MetaMask web extension. So this again uses the web wallets. You can see in this old video how this works. So here's the thing, right? I have in here right now, and I'm going to open these for you. I've got 3 PMON tokens, which equate to 1 booster pack. And then I can go ahead and do those 3 PMON. I click here and I do open booster. Now it's saying, oh, would you like to approve this transaction? I send over this little bit of BNB, which this is on the Binance Smart Chain network. And now it submits this transaction. You can see here what it's going to be doing. It's waiting for the block confirmation. This again is through the blockchain. It's going to generate some RNGs, right? It's literally all those numbers are right there. Random number generating with Chainlink. So Chainlink is an oracle. It goes out and looks at some real world factors and then generates a random number. That's because, again, the randomness is such a part of gaming that having a way to generate true random numbers has always been essential to a fun gaming experience, right? If you have a percentage chance to hit something based on the fact that you have a +2 sword and they have +3 armor, but your sword is fire and their armor is ice, there's a percentage chance that gets modified, but in order for the game to proceed, you have to have some method of generating that random number to decide what happens, right? Because in real life, that all breaks down to this incredibly complex physics. In gaming life, it breaks down to random number generators. So they use a random number generator to pull this, generates metadata for this new NFT that's now being minted, right? And so we're going to get to the security aspects of this here in a minute, because you're like, well, why would you want to do this? What's the point? How do we get to this? And we'll go there in a little bit. While this is going on, we'll come back here in a second, I can show you, right? Because this is PancakeSwap. PancakeSwap is a decentralized exchange. It's a way where you can exchange cryptocurrency tokens one to the other. This is also connected currently to the Binance Smart Chain through my MetaMask wallet. This is the current price of PancakeSwap tokens. Here, I can swap, BNB that I have in here, and I can find my PMON. And I look for this same token, PMON. Now, PMON's not you import it, so these are decentralized exchanges. They don't list every token you can possibly trade. These tokens are smart contracts. You give them the address for the smart contract. It says, have you looked at this? Anybody can create one of these, including fake versions of existing tokens and tokens that claim to represent projects that do not have a token. If you purchase an arbitrary token, you may be unable to sell it back. These are one of the dangers of DeFi, and this is why you should do your research before you start doing this kind of stuff and pay very close attention. You definitely need to find and listen to expert opinion about how to do this, and be careful until you're comfortable with it. I know exactly what I'm doing when I'm importing this token. I've done this a number of times. This isn't the first time that I've done this. I do understand the risks. I would still like to pull this in. I know what I'm looking at here. I can then look at this and say, oh, I've got enough BNB in my wallet to buy 3 more PMON tokens. So the difference here between BNB buying PMON and BNB buying BUSD, which is a stable coin, these are dollars, right? So I could also instead transfer this same BNB into BUSD, or those PMON into BUSD, right? They're all fungible within each other. They're changeable. You can swap them back. They're liquid, right? So that's where the decentralized exchanges work. So this layer of value and gaming tokens is tied together. It's the same thing, right? You're connecting a wallet here to do this. My boosters are ready to open. You're using boosters here to trade for value. This, again, this is as real as any other dollars, right? There is some transactional cost to pull it into money, but I've been doing this for a long time. It's real money. And so now they're the same thing. This gaming thing and this money thing, these DEXs, they're the same place. They're the same thing. This is why I'm talking about securities. So what happens here, right? So now I open this booster, and it says, all right, let's see what Pimon you got. Come on, black, black, black. Always bet on black. Black Pimon are very rare, and they give you lots of points. I'll show you that in a second. All right, let's see what we got. We got Una Air, Unicles, Una Cursed in our first pack. Nothing too crazy. So each of these have rarity. They have different aspects. Each of them, and I'll show you this in a little bit. I'm not going to go too far into this whole game. I got a few of these Unidonkeys. I got lots of Unidonkeys. Ooh, little baby Unifairy. I think this might be the only one that's slightly worthwhile. So again, these are just NFTs. Now these go into my collection. And if you look at my, and this is just one example of one NFT style game. And I'm trying to also illustrate why the notion of this right-click save as NFT thing for these JPEGs, it's a silly take on this. So, because each one of these is a token in my wallet, it's a real, actual cryptographic asset. It's cryptographically unique, which again, that's not, you can't really download that and then upload your own versions of these. Walking around the game a little bit, we'll see. Yeah, if you can hear me still. But yeah, so you bring your Pimon in, which are your NFTs, and then you can battle and you do quests and go around and do all sorts of RPG fun gaming things. And that's, so people are asking, what these are, what you can actually do with them. Well, you play games with them. That's the whole point. You level them up and do all your kind of stuff. They have their stats, their attacks, their description, right? These guys all just got beat up because I just got crushed. So in here, I'll just show you real quick. I have a score of 62,000. I have this rank. I'm in the top 2,000 or whatever of collectors. And then here you get a number of rewards for how many of these you hold. This is now you're staking your NFTs. The amount you get for staking is related to how many people open new packs. So you're part of this organization by holding these things that are also what are part of it. My video on state machines and shareholders, and also other videos along those same lines, kind of talks a little bit about how this transfer of where the value is, who owns it, who profits from it. These are paradigm changing concepts. Then depending on how many points I have, whatever within the rules, and the rules can change, and this is what's important to know. So they had a Halloween special a while back, and they had a situation where I think this used to be not 15,000 points, but I think 70,000 points for the amount that I had, into the point that I ended up spending a couple, maybe $100 or two to buy some other Pimon to jump up my price. And actually sold some because I had a couple extras. These were a special background one that you could find. See, these are the ones that I've got. And so again, these kind of special collections, this is just the start of this. And there's so much depth to each one of these kind of games, and people are like, oh, this is nothing, there's nothing to it. It's like, no, there's quite a bit to it. And then you get points for various sets. So now you have something that, there's a reason to collect them. There's a reason to go out and buy certain ones. And of course, here's what's interesting about this as well, right? So each one of these also has this link to the marketplace, right? And so you have a situation where There's, now 10,000 people, 20,000 of these listed, all sorts of different types. These nice filters, you can pick which kind you want, all these kinds, so you fill in the sets you need to collect, and then you get certain bonuses for different rarities. And again, all of this leads to points, which then you get more PMON each week, which you then have a choice. And this is where the thing gets interesting. You then have a choice. What are you going to do with this new value that's been generated by you already investing some value into this game? Your time, your energy, all of this stuff. These things are real, and they create actual value in the world. This is part of the big deal here. And this is what I want to, emphasize, right? So in these kind of NFT games, instead of the paradigm where you pay them once and then you have this single player game that you play forever, or this paradigm where you pay them monthly and then you have access to this multiplayer game forever, versus this paradigm Web3 thing where you literally start to buy the land, buy the territory, buy the things, you play, you use them, you invest. If you want to, you sell them. And your value now is literally part of the game and part of the landscape of the game. And the database is now controlled, kept safe, kept alive by this distributed system. There have been a number of multiplayer online games that have gone dead. The player base has the ability to, if you just give us the code, we'll run the servers, but they can't because they don't have the database, right? The back end side. With this Web3 gaming paradigm, that never happens. And you can have these communities that last well beyond any organizational corporate capacity could exist. That's the potential, right? That's what we can get to if this works. So the people, this disparity between people are like, you use energy and it's blah, blah, blah. Proof of stake networks have sacrificed generally the concept of redundant computing power by limiting the number of validators, but maintaining a understanding that a good portion of the network could be destroyed, but it would still function accurately and honestly. But they've given up having to say we need 20,000 computers running at once to do that, or we need 20 million computers running to do that at once, and instead said we can still achieve this possibility with 100 computers, with a normal-sized distributed cluster that's tied together running the same application. And that is how proof of stake networks are able to achieve what looks to be the same level of security that proof of work networks work. And I'm not going to go all the way into the technical details of the differences and how that translates to the less energy usage, but the point being that proof of stake networks can run with 100 computers, a level of security that is difficult to achieve and maintain with proof of work networks running 20 million. And those 20 million computers cannot simply process transactions at the same speed, at the same cost, at the same low level energy usage that proof of stake networks can. And this is why Ethereum itself is attempting to become a proof of stake network instead of a proof of work network. This is important to gaming. And being able to have these highly efficient blockchains from an energy standpoint is essential to this technology taking off. And it's there. We're already there, right? These Generation 3 blockchains just do not suck down the juice that people think they do. It's just flat out just not the way it is. So again, communication of fact in the 21st century is always a difficult process. So we'll see how that works. So I'm going to have one more example for you. And this is Star Atlas, which has been a pretty big thing that has taken off a little bit. So Star Atlas, I have my fleet, just a little fleet, out there flying around. Oh no, they're out of food! So again, all this is one of the farming kind of games. You have resources every day, you get a certain amount of stuff. So this fleet is made up of these two NFT ships that both cost like, I think $20 or so. They generate roughly one of these tokens, which again, this token can approve a transaction. says you're going to get 0.75 Atlas, you're going to pay 0.00001 Sol. That's Solana. This is a NFT game that runs on Solana. The last one I was showing you runs on the Binance Smart Chain. I'm a cross-chain believer. So anyway, that does that. And so now I claim that Atlas, so then I have to manage my fleet, and it's like, oh, do you need, oh, they're out of food, they're all starving, oh, let's resupply them, you know, so I'll send them some food. This is the same thing you do on any kind of farming game. You supply your stuff, you collect some resources, there's a couple things for doing this, a couple things for doing that. This, again, has a marketplace. You can go and buy these ships that are legendary or amazing. And this is where it talks about, right? This thing right here, 25,000 USDC, that's what that is. And wow, the crew components, they're really expanding what you're going to be able to do. So all of these, you know, captain, crew, component, warp drive, all of these, this capital ship kind of stuff. So you'll be able to build your ship, build your fleet, add the things that you want to do. So you can buy, here's the resources, you buy these also in the marketplace. They're right now extremely cheap, but you know, ultimately I think you'll have structures that will generate those resources. Again, it's just a farming kind of game with whatever genre you want to do, and then the people who are working on it, the developers, are using that. So the thing is, right, so I have these $20 NFT ships that through the rules of the engine generate this much Atlas each day at the same time. So I'd go right over here to Radium, which is a decentralized exchange for the Solana network. And, you know, these are actually my pools currently on this wallet. But here I've got, you know, and it shows you, I'll go ahead and tell you, I've got a couple $100 here in this pool. Roughly $205 worth in the pool, generating $100 worth of value over the next course of the year at these same rates. That's your APR. Most of these are in bonus Atlas. They are paying people to provide liquidity to allow people to get Atlas. So this stuff is the same thing, right? So I harvest here from this pool. This gives me 10 Atlas, right? And I approve that. This is the same process, right? These decentralized exchanges exchanging value, these NFT games doing farming kind of things. The question is, right, each day you've put in this amount of value, you get this amount of ores. What are you going to do with it? Right? Do you believe in the project? Are you going to keep saying, you know what, I've got another $2 worth of these, I'm going to just start taking my stuff out? Or are you going to, oh, I'm going to buy some more? And then ultimately, when you get to that point of, oh, I just want to be out of this, you can sell all of it and go play something else. And so this is what these kind of things start to allow. This is the metaverse starting to generate assets that are going to work between multiple games because the database now is decentralized. And that's all this part is. But it's a big deal, right? Web 1, Web 2, Web 3, local database, centralized external database, decentralized external database. That's the move that we're working to. And hopefully we can have the laws of this country updated fast enough so they can account for this total change of how organizational structure is going to work, right? Because again, so this goes into the security aspect of this, because we now have the Securities and Exchange Commission, Gary and his crew, they're taking this stance that everybody who wants to do a new project, to release a new token, to create a new blockchain, needs to come into his office, talk to them about what this is, qualified investors, and doing all that. And these other people are like, I just want to create like a dungeon game with NFTs. And they're like, well, get in this line of 10,000 organizations with these that have $5 million to spend on lawyers. And what do you guys got? There's 5 developers and whatnot. And yeah, we'll talk to you in 3 years. And they're like, well, in 3 years, this is all going to be over, right? Or not over, but it's all going to start, you know, the chance now to be on the ground floor of this kind of stuff. 3 years worth of development, 3 years worth of funding, 3 years worth of a whole team of artists creating really cool stuff. So even like this Star Atlas game, right? Right now, it's just a simple kind of web interface. But you work towards something that in the future then becomes something more along the lines of like No Man's Sky, where you're now flying these ships in this 3D universe to these places, and you have, oh, there's my place, right? There's my farm that I've had for 10 years now, right? So this is what the future allows, and one of these, by leveling out this, identity value space of the Web3, you allow this immense amount of innovation to happen in this gaming space that has become so stagnant and rent-seeking, with, again, the loot boxes and the battle passes and just all sorts of DLC and stuff like that all are just milking this market that doesn't get to milk back. And that's where and why, ultimately, I think this NFT gaming space is going to just win. Because it's going to be better. It doesn't take that many great games across that many genres to really start to illustrate how cool this can be. Once you get a really cool dungeon exploring game that has really cool character, and like the loot that you get from getting the dragon is real because it's, a 0.5% of every transaction that's happened as everybody been buying food to explore the dungeon. Right? You get to have things where, you can buy your equipment, you have to pay a tax, which is that, literally like local sales tax to the DAO that runs the game. And so these kind of things are really going to start to show up a lot more, and I just am hoping that Gary and the SEC realize that they are not needed in this space. There are solutions here from a regulatory standpoint, but a lot of them become ultimately just what should be good standard industry practices. You don't need regulation per se, but you do need some way to enforce that kind of stuff. And I'll say, as far as like the scams and everything else that's going on in crypto, my God, all the FBI needs to do is go to Twitter or any other social media and post MetaMask or Trust Wallet, and then all the people who respond acting as official support, go arrest them or go find out who they are, right? Anyway, that's my little rant on that side. But so anyway, I think we're going to finish up here. I've gotten most of the points across I think I wanted to. I do think the future of gaming and NFTs is tied well together, and I would much prefer to see these conversations happen around facts and reality and actual problems that this space faces, instead of kind of this made-up JPEG discussion that makes very little sense. And I've only been talking about NFTs for gaming. NFTs for as ticket access, as, real estate. There's all sorts. Again, it's a receipt that someone owns something, anything. The use cases are wildly huge. So if you're listening to this and you made it all the way to this point, hopefully you can just kind of, even if you were extremely skeptical to start, hopefully at this point you realize that, well, maybe there is some, and what I'm actually not liking is the current implementation of these. And so I would encourage you to keep watching the space to see who is doing it right and who has stuff like privacy NFTs, what's up, Secret, how you doing? Who has, a whole blockchain built directly for gaming NFTs. Not Matic, obviously. So, I'm a little jab. There's a lot of innovation happening in this space, and I hope you don't let the really emotionally driven opinions of teenage males drive a hatred of NFT-based gaming, because I think it does such a better job of aligning the incentives between gamers and developers by kind of literally taking the publisher out of the mix, and allows for the infrastructure that supports the game to be more decentralized, and allows for the funding of more outlandish studios to happen easier. I think there's a lot of aspects to tying blockchains and gaming together that will ultimately show some really good rewards, particularly for folks, as in any expansion or evolution of an industry, people who are in early and in the right places. I mean, people play games for a living. Doesn't it make sense that you could invest in games for a living at this point? Play them, but not have to have people watch you play them? I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen, but I'm very excited about this space, and I've showed you a couple of things that I think are some more interesting examples. Love to hear some feedback from folks and see what other things that you found that are awesome. If Strange Clan, where are you? Please, can you give me a Robot Pirate Ninja? That's all I want. I want a Robot Pirate Ninja in Strange Clan, because that looks super cool to be what's going on there. All right. Thank you for making it here. I doubt you made it. No, we'll see, like 2 people. It's all good. Have a good night.